Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and Christmas came early for Verlisify. Smogon is going to be suspect testing Mega Sableye. Oh, this is going to be good. Now, before you guys say that, oh, I need to stop attacking Smogon, I don't have anything to do with Smogon, let me just clear that up right now, because that's just incorrect.
And I'm going to expose you for the fraud that you are once and for all. And not just as a professional fraud, but as a personal fraud as well.
First off, I don't attack Smogon. But they are a casual competitive. They don't have true competition to them. I'm actually for the ban in the way that it's going to piss a lot of people off. A lot of people are going to be like, well, I love Greninja too much to just not be able to use my favorite Pokemon. I'm going to leave Smogon. I'm okay if it's going to make people mad. I'm actually for the ban in the way that I'm going to leave Smogon. I'm okay if it's going to make people mad. Flames are out. I make criticisms of their decisions, and very valid criticisms. I do tons of research for every video and be perfectly played around, so there's that. And then I was going and looking at some other things. So this is Pokemon Global Link. I do tons of research for every video. Also, if we go and look at usage stats on Sweeper Calc, 19% usage, so #1 most used Pokemon in October. Okay, so first I have to guess that my opponent is going into a Fairy typing, and then I have to land the 80% accuracy move. Okay, so first I have to guess that my opponent is going into a Fairy typing, and then I have to land the 80% accuracy move. Okay, so first I have to guess that my opponent is going into a Fairy typing, and then I have to land the 80% accuracy move.
Okay, so first I have to guess that my opponent is going into a Fairy typing, and then I have to land the 80% accuracy move.
So, as you can see here, my research has been fairly plentiful.
And that goes to the next point, is I know how to back up my evidence. I do more research, I probably know more about Smogon than like 90% of Smogon players. I do more research, I probably know more about Smogon than like 90% of Smogon players. I do more research, I probably know more about Smogon than like 90% of Smogon players. I do more research, I probably know more about Smogon than like 90% of Smogon players. I probably know more about Smogon than like 90% of Smogon players.
Are you kidding me? you fucking piece of shit.
So, as you can see here, my research has been fairly plentiful. Flames are out.
Just because I've been around for so long, I've been in the competitive scene 7 to 8 years. I'm kind of losing track at this point, and I don't want to go back and count it all. I've been competitive for a long time. I've been very familiar with Smogon. I've played in 4th Gen, played in 5th Gen, showed proficiency, and have played a lot in 6th Generation. Showed proficiency, and 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 I've been very familiar with Smogon. I've played in 4th Gen, played in 5th Gen, showed proficiency, and have played a lot in 6th Generation. Showed proficiency, and have played a lot in 6th Generation. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here. It's so beautiful. I broke 1700 and I'm finally ranked in the top 500. Now time to throw it away with some losses and battles or something, but you know, I did it. I've made my mark, and this is like really all it means to me, that I was able to get myself into the upper ranks. I was able to get myself into the upper ranks. I was able to get myself into the upper ranks. Showed proficiency, and have played a lot in 6th Generation, mostly just to adapt, not because I want to, but because it's such a common thing, which is again why I want to make these videos. I want to get the information out there to the masses so people can make their own informed opinion about what's really going on, and it's mostly about the inconsistencies with Smogon, that it seems like they just make things up on a whim. And now it's going to wonder, like, who's going to stay in the Smogon format, because a lot of people just got mad at this one. Like, almost half the community just make things up on a whim.
Can you not find a way to, like, respect Smogon's own tier system and respect it for what it is, respect their decisions, and still, you know, play casually yourself?
I would love to, but it just feels like Smogon affects non-Smogon players more than Smogon players think.
But they don't force their rules on anyone.
Just experience, though, it kind of has become like a more forceful kind of rule set. You know, if everyone doesn't understand the rule sets and you go up against a Smogon player and you use double team, they'll forfeit right there and just kind of not be good about the battle, even though you didn't know you were doing anything wrong.
Just make things up on a whim.
It's not a guaranteed setup because it can be cleared, and not every team runs a Pokemon Stealth Rock. If you're running Defog, you're not running Stealth Rock. If you're running Defog, you're not running Stealth Rock. I've been very familiar with Smogon. I've played in 4th Gen, played in 5th Gen, showed proficiency, and have played a lot in 6th Generation. If you're running Defog, you're not running Stealth Rock. Just make things up on a whim. It's showing that Greninja is not really centralizing. The problem is people centralize themselves. But they stick to one Pokemon, they bump up its usage, they like inflate its usage because it's a flavor of the month, and then they ban instead of innovate. And that just shows right here that they're taking the Pokemon that isn't even a threat just to keep their prized Pokemon that, you know, they're never going to say X Pokemon is busted when they really like it. Like, Landorus Therian just embodies what Smogon is. Entry hazard, bulk, switch, play around Pokemon that takes no skill to use. Swagger has existed for a long time. Prankster Swagger was back in 5th Generation. Baton Pass, back in 5th Generation. But then we just get into this comfort play where people are like, that takes no skill to use. Everyone's spamming this now, we might as well just ban it. If I could choose, if I was forced to have to say one Pokemon would be banned, and let's say Battle Spot rules, ban a Pokemon, I would say Landorus Therian, because, okay, I've already made my statements, you know, I don't care about Mega Mole, I don't care about Mega Kangaskhan. Mega Pokemon, they're supposed to be stronger, so I don't think they should have bans. Greninja just isn't strong enough to be banned, honestly. And then we look at Landorus Therian. This Pokemon is probably just one of the most frustratingly reliable Pokemon to play with, and I think that's why it has so much usage. It's a super easy Pokemon to play, that it takes no skill to play Landorus. You bring it in and you outspeed with Scarf, or you bring it in as a tank and you set up Stealth Rocks, and then you just blow up Pokemon. Well, actually, it doesn't really blow up Pokemon. It's more just a frustrating, safe Pokemon.
But then we just get into this comfort play where people like comfort play.
That whenever something seems convenient, they do it. And that could either be for comfort, fun, or just to remove a threat that isn't really a threat because they make up stuff to make it sound like a threat. So let's just start off with Smogon making stuff up, and then we'll start to work in Sableye. And I know Shadow Tag is also being suspected. Before you say, oh, it's also Shadow Tag, not just Sableye, you know, I did my research. I have many posts going on. I've read everything, and this is the same for every video. I make sure I read as much as possible so that way I don't miss anything in my logic, and I do cover all my grounds.
So I do want to talk about, you know, uncompetitive. This is like one of the first situations where Smogon just started making up their own definitions. You know, right here, unofficial definition of uncompetitive. And they just say but standard, but there's really no proof behind it being standard. So it's all about taking away autonomy or making it to where you have less control of your game's actions and it makes it less skill-based to make anything happen. Now, that isn't necessarily uncompetitive, especially with a game like Pokemon. You could get that 10% chance of burn, the 6% chance to get a crit. Anything can happen in Pokemon that removes autonomy, so that doesn't make it a naturally uncompetitive game, but Smogon decides what is and isn't uncompetitive. And then we also have it to where this other really wild buzzword that I don't understand, centralizing. Now, when it comes to centralizing, I've done my research. I googled, you know, centralizing Smogon definition, and I've got nothing. There's no official post on what centralizing, over-centralizing means with Smogon. It's just what, it's like this random community thought. And I found this post back in, May 2010? So this post is ancient, talking about, what it is, and mostly it's just, over-centralizing sounds like what it is, when something becomes so much of a threat that you have to either build for it or use it, and then it's everywhere, so it just becomes, an almost mandatory part of the game that makes it unfun. So that's what, people have kind of come up with. However, this is really peculiar to me, because with Mega Sableye, how is it a centralizing force in the game that is not easy to take down? First off, this is just, wrong. A lot of things in this post are very misleading or outright wrong, such as Mega Sableye forces use of specific Pokemon, so he gives Mega Pidgeot are 2 examples, and, all these weird things about R-types and breakdown. Now, Mega Sableye is very easy to counter, and, here's the weird thing about bans. They're either about over-centralization or something that's uncounterable, or in some situations both. Greninja had, 30-something% usage, and was theoretically has no counters, which I've debunked in a different video, with the Landorus Incarnate video. Also said to be over-centralizing, also said to have no theoretical counters, or very few theoretical counters, so counters and centralization are a big point. Sableye has none of that. You bring pretty much any kind of fairy-type move, or any kind of fairy-type Pokemon, it's going to scare off Mega Sableye. You bring in a physical fire-type Pokemon, it's going to scare off Mega Sableye, because Mega Sableye relies on that Will-O-Wisp burn, and you can't burn a physical fire-type Pokemon, so they're still going to have enough damage to potentially out-damage you before you can set up. Mega Charizard X gives Sableye huge problems. Any setup, fire-type Pokemon, any other Pokemon they can set up, Swords Dance sometimes outpaces Sableye, Lumberry definitely stops Mega Sableye on a physical Pokemon, and then you have some other setups like Calm Mind or Scald. If the 30% chance the Scald burn lands on Sableye, that Sableye loses a lot of its power, and you don't even need a counter to beat down Sableye. Sure, it'll take some time, that's just Pokemon. If you don't have the right team, you're going to have a difficult time anyways, but let's talk about the right team. You can imagine with a Pokemon that's centralizing, it'd be in many games that you have to use it or you have to defend against it. Sableye has 6% usage. Tell me, 6.25%, so what is that, 1 in 15? Tell me how a Pokemon that is in 1 in 15 games is centralizing. That you lose, you quote-unquote, say you lose every battle that you're not prepared, that shows up a Sableye. You lose 6% of your battles. That's not going to be that game-changing, it's not going to, absolutely destroy your record. And even then, there's a ton of things, if you're not running a fairy-type Pokemon or physical fire, or something that just is good at dealing with Sableye on your team, then that's your fault. That shouldn't count against Sableye, that shouldn't count against all these other things. Here's the biggest part of the argument. 6%. How is 6% centralizing? That shows all these inconsistencies. There's 34 more used Pokemon, and some of them are even counters. Clefable is used twice as often, and this is a huge counter to Sableye. And we see this all the time. So, same with the Landorus ban. Landorus, I think, had 13% usage, but was seen as a centralizing threat. So this is why I feel like Smogon just starts making stuff up for the sake of being casual. And now people will get upset at me calling Smogon casual. Here's how I consider casual play. Playing for fun, playing for comfort. Now, you see a Mega Sableye and you're not ready for it, that's not fun. So you call it over-centralizing to get it removed so you have fun again. Well, if you're removing aspects to have fun, or because it's making you not have fun, or you're removing it for comfort, that's casual levels of play. That's comfort play. That's not high levels of competitive gaming in any regard. Like, if we're going by this, we're going back to, like, the whole uncompetitive thing. Well, what is something that's truly uncompetitive? This is an unofficial definition. So they're saying, I made up this definition, I'm calling it uncompetitive for my made-up definition, and I want to have fun while playing this game, so I want it gone. I want to be comfortable while playing. That's not how competitive gaming works at all. So there's also this other post that I've kind of clicked back and forth with. This was on November 1st about just people's thoughts about Mega Sableye and how it's centralizing, and another thing is hazards. So that's what was mentioned in this post as well, talking about how it makes it difficult to set up any sort of entry hazard once it's Mega Evolved. This, again, pretty misleading, because first off, it's not guaranteed for Mega Sableye to Mega Evolve. Like, if you lead a Mega Sableye, that's very risky, because they can just lead with the counter, which is really safe. Like, you lead with a Clefable against Mega Sableye, well, Mega Sableye doesn't get the Mega Evolve, or else it's going to get KO'd. So it's not guaranteed to have Mega Sableye Mega Evolve, and even then, to stop entry hazards, it needs to be played perfectly. It needs to already be Mega Evolved, it needs to switch in at the right time, and if you switch in at the wrong time, you take free damage, and that's very not good, because that could lead to a 2-3 hit KO situation where you fall behind. You need to preserve the Sableye, and if you miss that prediction, then it doesn't work. So it's not extremely difficult. The Sableye player needs to play really well to remove the hazards, and that's being punished by banning Mega Sableye through having the Sableye proficiency. And even then, we have Pokemon like Caesar, we have Pokemon with higher usage that are defoggers that remove hazards anyways. So when I was going back to this post, a lot of people are just talking about how it's annoying that it's removing hazard play from the game. I think that was one of these things right here, yeah. Took away from other types with Sableye defog. You can, without barely any effort, make sure that Stealth Rocks are going to be not present on your side of the field. That's strategy right there. This is what we call counterplay. Mega Sableye defog, these provide gateways of counterplay to stopping Stealth Rocks. If you're running Focus Sash, you don't want any of those Stealth Rocks on the field. And another thing that I understand about Smogon is that Stealth Rocks plays as an absolute to them. Almost every time, Stealth Rocks is assumed to be on the field always. You don't start the game with Stealth Rocks on the field.
It's not a guaranteed setup because it can be cleared, and not every team runs a Pokemon Stealth Rock. If you're running Defog, you're not running Stealth Rock.
And there's a lot of defog Pokemon team, or you can run defog and Stealth Rocks, but it's very, very tricky to do. It's not straightforward to make any of this work at all. So the biggest confusing aspect to me is how a 6% usage Pokemon, again 1 in 15 battles, is centralizing, but something that is assumed to be in every battle that isn't a part of the game, that is a mandatory thing, isn't centralizing. Like, I'm not saying Stealth Rocks need to be banned or checked or something because it's centralizing, but that's the thing, like, when did this reliant of Stealth Rocks play become an absolute must and something to protect? That instead of making it to where, oh, it's uncompetitive, oh, it's actually over-centralizing, it seems like this is a hidden agenda thing to actually keep Stealth Rocks in the metagame as strong as possible and removing counters. But then we just get into this comfort play where people are like, everyone's spamming this now, we might as well just ban it, instead of encouraging people to just change their mentality, play around it. That means you're actually making the game more centralized. Anything new that's trying to bring a fresh strategy. Oh, I have a different way of clearing out Stealth Rocks and getting my team momentum off of that. Nope, we can't have that. Oh, this improves the usage of Togekiss, Mega Pidgeot, and like fire-type Pokemon that are physical.
It's not a guaranteed setup because it can be cleared, and not every team runs a Pokemon Stealth Rock. If you're running Defog, you're not running Stealth Rock.
Oh, we gotta get rid of it because, it's creating more gateways of Pokemon to be used than it is limiting. Like, you can actually make that case because there's no centralizing aspects to Sableye on a grand scale. Sure, in very niche level plays, oh, I saw Sableye 2 battles in a row because those low odds kind of added up. I guess it's centralizing. There's nothing here. The stats do not add up with this. So then it's like, okay, if it's all about preserving Stealth Rocks in the metagame, when did that become the definition of a balanced metagame? Now, the interesting thing about Smogon that you may or may not know about is that if you kind of dig through, you go to the About section, you go to the philosophy, the whole thing about the Smogon philosophy is making a balanced metagame. Now, this is something I've read over and over, and I don't understand it. Because this is on the website, and it's really just talking about how they are acting elitist right there. Defined by Smogon's elites, standard sets. There's a lot of things about the accepted standard, and that, you have to play one way through the Smogon philosophy.
But they don't force their rules on anyone.
And everything else is kind of bad, but it's also towards the goal of having a balanced metagame. Well, wouldn't a balanced metagame be a metagame that exists where you don't have to have Stealth Rocks to win? That whenever something seems convenient, they do it. And that could either be for comfort, fun, or just to remove a threat that isn't really a threat because they make up stuff to make it sound like a threat. Where you don't have to make all these crazy predictions, where you can have as many Pokemon as possible. But then we just get into this comfort play where people are like, because right now, it feels like the metagame is super lame and stagnant. That's all about luck, which is interesting because Smogon's all about removing luck, or their uncompetitive definition of luck in non-autonomous actions, Swagger has existed for a long time. Prankster Swagger was back in 5th generation. Baton Pass, back in 5th generation. But then we just get into this comfort play where people are like, because right now the idea is you set up stealth rocks and then you kind of switch around your opponent until they win it. Which is actually one of the main things about this whole thing right here is that, oh, by making it to where Pokemon can come in and I can't force it out, then I'm not getting effective usage out of my stealth rocks. And that's one of the weird things about Smogon, as I've noticed for the 6th generation, or at least late 5th into 6th generation, that's all about predictions. That somehow a prediction is seen as skill. A prediction is literally a guess when it comes down to it. That you can never have enough skill to make a prediction 100% of the time. So there's always going to be a lack of autonomy when it comes to making a prediction. That, is your opponent going to read your double switch? Are you going to get a double switch? Is your opponent going to misplay? That when you're playing a game of switches, you're literally relying on your opponent to misplay, overpredict, underpredict, or not get a proper read on you, and then you're going to win because of that. Now, does that mean that the skilled player is always going to win? No, the lesser skilled player could make a dumb looking move, or, you know, like staying in when he shouldn't, or switching when he shouldn't, that could catch
the better player off guard, and then the lesser player could win. So it's really a non-autonomous action to promote switching. That's what stealth rocks is for. That if you're using, damage things like U-turn and volt switch, or you have stealth rocks up and you're applying a lot of switching pressure and you're using that to snowball an advantage, that's really what their metagame is boiled down to, and that's what removing Sableye is trying to preserve. Same thing with Shadow Tag. So that's what Shadow Tag gets into. That denies, key elements in Pokemon switching. This right here denies key elements in Pokemon switching. This is in no way objective. This is in every way just an entirely pure opinion that can be argued, because switching, as I've argued in this video and other videos in the past, has a lot of luck elements to it. You can never predict a switch. You can get predicted on a switch. There's nothing completely autonomous that is absolutely still driven by switching, but that's been the focus of Smogon as of recently, which goes against their own philosophy of getting rid of uncompetitive ideas. So that's why I'm really confused by all of this, and that by reducing switching, well, the opponent's not playing you right now. They use their team, which can outcomp yours, and that's a problem, Okay, in a perfect world, there'd be these same 10 Pokemon, and you have a good idea of what you're going to expect. But no, Pokemon's so diverse that you can go up against any team. You can lose before the battle's even begun. Your opponent brings 6 better Pokemon, and you lose from that. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. And it seems like that's what Smogon wants. They want it to where you know what your opponent's going to bring, and then you know how to play around your opponent, or something like that. But the skilled player, in theory, is going to know how to beat the same team, which is that's centralization itself. In a really balanced game, you can have it to where you can just get outcome. That is balance right there, because that means so many things are viable, but you can't prepare for all of them. Sure, that is kind of unfortunate, but that's Pokemon. There's so many non-autonomous actions that you can't remove any of it, really. Okay, tell me, you can't remove crits, you can't remove that chance to burn, you can't remove that chance to burn with Scald. What's up with the reliance on Scald? Scald is purely uncompetitive, if you're going by this definition. 1 in 3 chance to burn, well, people bank on that Scald. People want Scald to be the thing that you have to rely on, and it's become a very strong part of the metagame. There's no consistency in Smogon whatsoever. That's what this video is about. That's what all of my bans are about. That there's no post that says we want our metagame, and we consider balance where stealth rocks is viable. We consider balance where stealth rocks is assumed in 100% of battles, or something like that. We consider over, like, they don't even have a percentage. They don't say over centralizing starts at 4%. Pokemon that are above 4% might not necessarily be over centralizing, but blah blah blah. There's no definitions whatsoever. It's literally someone says, this upsets me, I want it gone, I'm a casual. Like, that's all that this says right here to me, and that's what it should say to any logical person. That there's so many inconsistencies, and that's my problem with Smogon. And then
Can you not
decides
find
to
a way to, like, respect
respect
Smogon's own tier system, and respect it for what it is, respect their decisions, and still, play casually yourself?
You fucking piece of shit.